guidelines for government advertising are to prevent arbitrary use of public funds for advertising by public authorities to project particular personalities, parties, or governments without any attendant public interest. B. Neither to belittle the need nor deny the authority of the union and state governments and its agencies to disseminate information necessary for public to know on the policies and programs of the government, but only to exclude the possibility of any misuse of public funds on advertising campaigns in order to gain political mileage by the political establishment. C. To address the gap in the existing DABP guidelines, which only deal with the eligibility and empanelment of newspapers, journals, or other media and the rates of payment and such like matters, and not on how to regulate the content of government advertisement. D. To ensure that all government activities satisfy the test of reasonableness and public interest, particularly while dealing with public funds and properties. E. To ensure that the government messaging is well coordinated, effectively managed in the best democratic tradition, etc. Now, the 5 principles of content regulation, para 6. While placing advertisements or purchasing advertising space in any media, the government shall be guided by the following principles, namely, advertising campaigns to be related to government responsibilities. While it is the duty of the government to provide the public with timely, accurate, clear, objective, and complete information about its policies, programs, services, and initiatives, since the public has a right to such information, the content of the government advertisement should be relevant to the government's constitutional and legal obligations, as well as the citizens' rights and entitlements. Then advertisements should be presented in an objective, fair, and accessible manner and designed to meet the objectives of the campaign. This is about objectivity, etc. And thereafter, Lord, 3. Advertisement materials should be objective and not directed at promoting political interests of the ruling party. Then government advertising, Roman 2, shall maintain...
These guidelines are now adopted as a part of the order of the court.
Yes, they are adopted as a part of the order of the court. Thereafter, my lord, some restrictions on the photographs, etc. But today, my lord, what we are seeing, we have given a lot of examples of that, of the kind of advertising that is taking place. It is completely defeating all these objectives. And that's why, my lord, we are saying, if by and large the advertising outside the state is not within the corners of the objects and the guidelines that have been laid down, occasionally it may happen. I'm not saying that it cannot ever happen that a state may need to advertise or use government advertising outside the state, but that's very rare. Today we are seeing a rampant abuse of that, and we have given a lot of examples of that. That you are advertising, if your lordship sees, that page, the COVID relief that is being given in Delhi is being advertised in the states where elections are going to be held. Now the point is, how does that information to people outside Delhi, how is that relevant? The only object is that you are using government funds to advertise yourself for the election. So therefore, that's political partisan advertising. You use party funds to advertise those kind of advertisements. You can't use government funds for that, because government funds involves 2 things. One is abuse of public funds. Public funds are meant for public welfare, not for your partisan political advertising. The committee said that this advertising has to be for the beneficiaries of the government. There are no beneficiaries of this in Gujarat, etc., or wherever. You are saying that this kind of COVID relief is being given to citizens in Delhi. Therefore, this is just one example. There are so many examples that we have given of this rampant abuse that is going on. And that's why, my lord, we have come with an advertorial. Your lordship was saying that Just see the kind of advertorials that have been issued. See if you can make out at all. Yes, and all happens, we have given that the figures that this advertising is concentrated on states which are going for polls just before the polls and so on. How can it be, Malad? How can it be that the government is advertising only in those states which are just going to polls? Obviously, Malad, there is a political objective being served, which has been prohibited.
So the
Just
election
the
is
advertorial.
the election commission
Just the
Bhushan, is the election commission also part of the respondents list?
Pardon?
You're saying since they're going on the eve of elections,
Yes.
and are part of coming up with these ads, have you made the election commission also a party here?
Have I made the
Election commission.
election commission?
You don't seem
No,
to have.
election commission is not a party, but we
Would
can.
they have a role to play? Your prayer 3 is directed against.
I don't know, Lord.
Look at your prayer 3. Look at your prayer 3.
But let me just go back to my prayers first, Lord.
Yes, that's why we're asking.
First prayer is about advertising in other states. Second prayer is about advertorial. Third prayer is about advertising just before the election.
That's why
And on that, election commission did issue a recommendation saying that at page 72, my lord, they said, page 73, they said that there should be a prohibition on this government advertising 6 months before the election.
That's why election commission would be a party, if at all. You're looking at
The committee said it should be immediately prior. The election commission said 6 months. This is a sort of.
We ask, we can't direct that the selection of the CGRA should be by the Prime Minister, the Chief Justice, and the leader of the opposition.
Why not? Lord, your Lordship has
Mr. Bhushan, there's enough work which the Chief Justice has to do on the judicial side and the administrative side of
Your
it.
Lordship can ask some other authority. Today, what is happening is, unfortunately, my Lord, this kind of misuse and abuse that we are seeing today would not have happened. We have given many examples of the kind of rampant abuse of advertising funds that is going on. This would not have happened if the committee had not been partisan. But unfortunately, the committees that are being appointed are partisan. And the reason for that is that 2 of the 3 selection committee are essentially government nominees. Only one, that is the chairman of the press council, is somewhat independent. No, I won't say totally independent, a little independent of the government. But otherwise,
that committee is appointed by whom?
So government appoints one expert, one there is chairman of the press council is ex officio. And then there are 2 other people who are essentially selected by the government. So the result is that if 2 of the 3 people in the selection committee are selected by the government, then they appoint people who are partisan. I mean, one of the persons who was appointed was this gentleman who runs the Kiri channel, first person who was appointed. So if you look at that channel, it's totally partisan. Totally partisan. It's just an unabashed propaganda arm of the government. So therefore, what's the point in having these kind of people if they are going to, and then there is no transparency in this. One of our prayers is that there should be transparency. You should put out all your orders on a public website, all the orders, and this committee is supposed to act suo motu. They are not supposed to receive complaints and then act on the complaints. They have been directed to act suo motu, etc. And therefore, Lord, 2 of our prayers relate to this committee. One is the selection of the committee, and the other is the transparency in the functioning of this committee. Because otherwise, we wouldn't have seen, after that judgment, we wouldn't have seen this kind of rampant abuse that is going on. On vaccines.
All right, we'll issue notice. We'll issue notice. Let's get a return. Yeah. 31.
Like to appeal for the petitioner.